You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome back to our season finale episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Centre, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Check out their updated job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broder with you to discuss the Sabres' upcoming off-season here. Haven't had an episode for you guys in a little bit here, obviously with the season ending, but definitely some Sabres news that we can discuss. We're going to we'll go over 4 topics today. We will talk about, if you're watching on the video version, I've got the show topics up on the screen for you. We're going to go over best senior advisor choice for Kevyn Adams. That was something that they had discussed in the exit interviews about them going to be hiring somebody to help out Kevyn Adams, who the best option would be there. Kevyn Adams and Lindy Ruff both returning next season. Was that a good or bad move moving forward? We'll go over the Sabres' 9th overall selection in the 2025 NHL Draft. Will they keep it? Will they trade up, trade down? What's the best thing to do with that draft pick, and sort of some players to watch around the number 9 pick, although we will probably have a draft preview for you guys later into June. And then as well, we'll finish off with early off-season needs of what the Sabres should be doing come free agency and via trade when July 1st opens up. So with that said, Austin, it's, when we talk about Lindy Ruff and Kevyn Adams both coming back this season or next season, that was something that was heavily discussed and sort of debated, not only us on this show, but throughout Sabres media and Sabres Twitter throughout the whole season. Would Kevyn Adams return as a general manager, and would Lindy Ruff return as the head coach? We got our answer. Both are going to be coming back, despite the team having a 13-game losing streak, playing better down the stretch, and missing the playoffs for a 14th straight year. What are your thoughts on it?
Expected, I guess. I feel like there was probably more of an argument for Ruff to come back for one more year than there was for Adams. Like I said, I don't know how many GMs get as long as Adams has gotten without making the playoffs, but also getting statistically worse over the last 3 years. But we also know the owner of this team. If he likes you and trusts you, doesn't really matter how bad you are at your job, you're going to stay. I also think the fact that both of them only had one, they both were on 2-year deals Adams had 2 years left on his deal and then he hired Ruff on the 2-year deal. I think that comes into play here, where essentially it's like, if you don't make the playoffs, I just don't have to re-sign you. I don't have to pay you to go away. I just don't have to re-sign you. But the danger there is, well, if you don't make the playoffs next year, I imagine 2 or 3 of your stars aren't going to want to be here next year. So it's a risk. When we get into the senior advisor thing, that'll kind of come into play here, but it's a very big risk this organization is taking. I don't like it. Ruff, I have no problem with. He's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best coaches that's ever coached. So I have no issue with him coming back. The issue is with Adams necessarily, because like I said, I just don't get how any serious organization could allow him to still be the GM here. But who knows? Maybe this advisor that they hire will come in and right the ship. But I guess, yeah, I never really expected significant. I never expected Adams to get fired. Maybe he was moved like Ron Francis was in Seattle, but I never expected him to get fired.
No, and I don't think they were going to give Lindy Ruff one season, and if anything, it seems like he was going to be on a 2 to 3 year window here anyway. And whether Seth Appert, the assistant coach, was going to be the guy that they were quote unquote grooming to take over for Lindy Ruff in that scenario, who knows? But obviously with how bad the power play was this year, that's something that they're going to want to address going into the offseason. But as you mentioned, Adams coming back and it being announced that he's going to be hiring a senior advisor to kind of help him out there. One, do you like the fact that they are looking for a senior advisor? And two, I guess you could say, do you think that why does the group of people saying, why does Adams need a senior advisor when he's already 4 or 5 years into his job? If he can't do the job, then why is he still here? But where do you sit on the fence with hiring this advisor, and how hands-on do you think he's going to be in Adams' ear?
I'd still say it's about 5 years too late. This probably should have happened when Adams was named the GM because he had no experience. That being said, I adding another, probably the specific criteria that they have outlined for this guy, where they want him to be a former GM who sat in a prominent seat in the hockey ops thing. I like that because I think they need someone with respect and credibility amongst these NHL GMs to be brought in and help Kevyn Adams. Unfortunately, yeah, it is a little sad that your 6-year veteran GM needs a senior advisor, but this team has been so bad, they should never turn away anyone with any credibility in the hockey world. So I like it. I think it's a little bit too late. Not groundbreaking news there. I think most fans would agree. Most people would agree, but they desperately need someone to come in and not only help Kevyn Adams, but just bring some respect and credibility back. Because if we're being honest, I don't know. Like, Adams feels like he has a reputation of, well, we know he has a reputation of either failing to pull the trigger on these deals or taking way too long to get them done. And I don't necessarily know if that's all on Adams. Like, maybe these GMs around the league just don't respect the guy, so they try to take him to the backyard and take him to the woodshed on these deals. And he's I don't know what it is, but another voice with credibility who can help Adams with these things, whether it be trades or free agents, is desperately needed. And that's why, like, you saw those Lou Lamoriello rumors flying the other day. Like, I'm willing to take anybody. We need it.
So we'll get into that right now with our next topic there of best senior advisor choice to help Adams. Is there a clear best option for Kevyn Adams to hire as a senior advisor to help him move the franchise forward? And are there best options? So that goes into our first Twitter poll. Again, make sure to give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics. Just get in on our fan polls that we do for our shows. So the options that I provided here were Jarmo Kekalainen, Rick Dudley, Lou Lamoriello, and other. There were no other options that were given. So Jarmo Kekalainen, obviously the former Columbus Blue Jackets general manager. Rick Dudley, is one of the most well-respected guys within the hockey world. Was a Sabres player, was a Sabres coach, was a general manager in this league for a long time, has been the director of scouting. He's been basically every position within a hockey management that you could think of now as a senior scout with the Florida Panthers. Still around this Buffalo area. I've seen him a little bit covering some OHL games. He's been over in Niagara a few times, still in the Western New York area, but there with the Florida Panthers. And then the last one, obviously, Lou Lamoriello that you touched on, was let go by the New York Islanders. He's had a long, tenured career as a general manager and as a hockey executive with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and long time with the New Jersey Devils before that, and even a coach but before that, a guy that, is one of the guys that you'd mentioned in the old boys club, the quote-unquote, air quotes if you're listening to this in audio. So with the results of the poll, Rick Dudley won with 47.4%. Jarmo Kekalainen was 26.3%. Lou Lamoriello 15.8%. And other. So I guess there were people would want other as a 10.5%. But Austin, what are your thoughts on it, and what direction you think they're going here?
Okay, so up until about, I don't know when the news broke, a couple hours ago, the Shanahan news. Was it yesterday? Whatever. Beside the point, I would have broken it down either to Dudley or Kekalainen as my two favorite options. And realistically, it depends on exactly what the Sabres are looking for, because we don't really know. Are they looking for someone to essentially be the GM in waiting? You know what I mean? Like, if things go wrong with Adams, they have already someone in the organization who can just kind of step in. Or are they literally looking for someone to help mentor Adams, to help him be the long-term solution here? Because if you're looking for that mentor guy, I think Dudley should be the clear-cut option. the clear-cut favorite. If you're looking for someone to kind of be the GM in waiting, that's more of a Kekalainen. Because to me, like whatever opinion you have of him with what he did with Columbus, he did do some solid work with the Blue Jackets, and he's been a GM before. So, like, to me, those are the two options there. I'm throwing both of those out the window now. They should, in my opinion, go all out to bring Shanahan here. They're not going to. But to me, that's the clear-cut option. But if we're going off of what the polls were, yeah, I think if you want a GM in waiting, that should be Kekalainen. If you want a pure advisor, Dudley feels like a slam dunk with all his connections to Buffalo.
And with him still being in the area as well. I found it interesting with Matthew Darche being named the general manager of the Islanders, because that was somewhat of where Shanahan was rumored to be going before they let go of Shanahan. The Leafs said that they had granted Shanahan's request from the Islanders to speak with him. So now that he's a free agent, I don't know if that's still going to be an option for him to go there. You know, the Sabres have tried this before with trying to bring in a high-profile guy. Would Shanahan want to come in here? And again, what level of control would they want to have in the organization? Do they want to just be, you know, that voice for Kevyn Adams, the voice of reason, or do they want to come over and take over the organization? Because I think certain guys on that list would be more so wanting to be hands-on. The Shanahans of the list, the Lamoriellos, want to implement their plan to kind of overwrite Kevyn Adams. As you mentioned, maybe a Rick Dudley or somebody like that would more so just be, you know, there for Adams when he needs it. That don't really want to come in and change their organization, the culture into what they want it to be. So I think it's more so going to be leaning that way. I don't think they want to bring in necessarily, you said they want like somebody that's been a high profile general manager, but not somebody that's going to come in and want to make swooping changes, change Adams, because as you mentioned, I think Terry Pegula wants to keep Kevyn Adams around at least for this season, because he trusts him and wants to see him in this general manager role. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be, if it's not going to be, you know, with Brendan Shanahan, as you mentioned, I think Rick Dudley would be my choice, just given, you know, his respect and credibility within the league of in the sport of hockey, everything he's done, from still going to games, you know, now, you know, he's on the ground. He's one of those guys that you look at as one of those, at least I look at as a guy to look up to within the hockey world. So it's interesting, but I think, I don't know. I'm still confused as to what exactly their criteria is. But I definitely like the idea of giving Adams help if they're not going to just get rid of him completely.
So that is also my fear, right? So fourth period, this was before Holland accepted the Kings job. The fourth period reported that the Sabres approached Lamoriello and Holland and both declined. Obviously, a lot of people got mad about that, but again, these are guys who are well-respected hockey guys who have had success in this league. My fear for the Sabres is twofold. One, are they approaching people they know are going to say no so they can kind of just save face and say, hey, we tried? Or two, again, not to be overtly negative, but like, why would Lou Lamoriello, Jarmo Kekalainen for that matter, sure as hell Shanahan, why would these guys want to come here and report to Kevyn Adams? Because that is the report that we have seen so far, is this person will report to Kevyn Adams. Why would a well-respected guy come here to a team on a 14-year playoff drought and report to the GM who, we talk about this 14-year drought, the dude's been here for 6 of those 14 years. He's been here for almost half of it. So I think all their criteria has been to help Kevyn Adams and report with Kevyn Adams and blah, 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 and all that stuff. If you want someone with credibility, you're going to have to give them power. And you should, for that matter. It's why when the rumors came out, like, they were thinking about naming a GM and having Adams go to president, people laughed at it. But, like, I would have preferred that, because that means the decision maker, the everyday guy, would not have been Kevyn Adams. This is setting up this team to be a joke, to get rejected by people, because why Dudley is different, because that's why the Dudley thing is starting to make the most sense to me, because one, he's not going to report to Kevyn Adams. I'm not worried about that, but Dudley doesn't seem, like you said, he's boots on the ground and all that stuff, but at his age, he's not a guy who I'm assuming does not want the daily grind of a GM job. So him being an advisor makes the most sense in helping Kevyn Adams. But getting someone else with credibility, somebody else like a Shanahan or a Lamoriello or a Kekalainen for that matter, or anybody, even Bergevin, because I know Bergevin didn't get the Islanders job. He's the first name that jumped to my brain, but turns out he's staying with Ken Holland in LA. Like these types of guys, I can't see them wanting to come here and work under Kevyn Adams. If they had influence and actual power and were working collaboratively, which maybe they will, I have no idea. But to me, it's just, I think they're setting themselves up for failure. Or the worst case scenario is they are doing this on purpose to try and appease the fan base. And hey, we tried.
Do you think that Kevyn Adams is like rep around the league is like, do you think he's respected enough where somebody wants to come in and
absolutely not
and work under him?
I don't think Kevyn Adams and Terry Pegula are respected at all amongst NHL people. If they were, we wouldn't be in this situation.
They wouldn't have got rejected by guys that have been let go by multiple teams in the last years, like Ken Holland.
I will say Ken Holland was offered the GM job at the Kings. Clearly, you take that job over the senior advisor to to a GM, right? Like that is totally fine. But for a guy like Lou Lamoriello to be like, no, I'm good, right? Maybe he's just done with hockey. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like it. Seems like he's still pretty involved with the Islanders right now.
I found it
we'll
ridiculous.
See what happens now that Darsh is there, but up until this moment, he was still pretty involved. So, like, he's not a guy who's done with hockey. Shanahan's not a guy who's done with hockey.
Nope.
Right? I'm not trying to be mean. Like, I am a Sabres fan, but, like, they're clearly not respected around the league.
Is Bruce Boudreau a name we can throw out there?
Good luck.
Yeah, I know. He's in the area, but
the Eric Stahl thing, which I don't know if we're actually going to talk about. That,
right, you can go ahead and mention that.
Which I have no problem with the Eric Stahl thing, by the way. I don't think it's good. I also don't think it's bad. Like there's no negative to doing what they just did with.
He
Eric
played
Stahl.
with him in Carolina. Kevyn Adams played with Eric
there's no
Stahl.
negative. Like no one's going to be like, oh my god, they're a joke. They hired a future Hall of Famer to be the special assistant to the like. No,
the Leafs did it with Spezza when he was.
That's
done
what I'm
playing.
saying. Like there's no downside to it. I question the upside to it, but at the end of the day, if he gets even one guy to walk through that door to come play for the Sabres, that's a win.
Right.
Like if he reaches out to, I don't know, whoever, like somebody from the Panthers, somebody from the Wild, somebody from Carolina, and he's like, hey, come here, and like gets you a meeting with a guy, like he's that's a success. So like, but what I'm saying there is that can't be the only move.
Right.
And also they hired that strength and conditioning guy who apparently Seth Appert had connections with. So like, I don't know what happens if Kevyn Adams isn't the GM. We don't have to worry about it. But all indications are if Kevyn Adams is still the GM going forward and this works out, Seth Appert is still going to be the coach going forward, the head coach of the future. It still seems like, he was asked about Josh Norris in the embedded episode. He had this high performance strength coach come in who his people are raving about and said this is a great get for the Sabres. I can't pretend that I have any opinion on that, but people smarter than me who know or say that this is a good hire for the Sabres, and Appert apparently had that connection. So all intents and purposes are if Adams is still here going forward, it still looks like Seth Appert's going to be the head coach of the future. So this advisor needs to be a home run hire and somebody who actually has respect. And you just got to hope Eric Stahl can do anything. If Eric Stahl gets you at one free agent, that's a win in my books. So like, I wasn't that mad about the Eric Stahl thing. I joked around about it, but there's no downside to that.
Yeah, I mean, if a future Hall of Famer right after his playing career who only played a half a season with Buffalo wants to come here,
like, put it like this, replace the name Eric Stahl with Kyle Oposo, because I know whatever. But if it was Kyle Oposo as a special assistant, I don't think Sabres fans care. I think they're mad because it's Eric Stahl. I don't personally care.
Just because he beat them in the conference final in 2007 and went on to win the Stanley Cup, who Adams played with on that team. Again, I'm okay. I don't care about the Eric Stahl thing. It was the same thing when Spezza got hired by the Leafs. It's like former player wants to get into management, and this is a good first step for him. So Eric Stahl, now part of the Buffalo Sabres organization with Kevyn Adams. I don't know, as you mentioned, what the upside is and what his actual role is going to be. If it's recruiting, then all the power to him, and maybe he's a bridge. He can go in that locker room and players respect him because he's just recently out of the game, right?
That's, like I said, there's no downside.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I don't know if we want to touch on it, but I don't know how true it is, but there was rumors that Karmanos will be leaving when Rochester season's over. That would suck.
Yeah, I mean, they hired him to help out Kevyn Adams with Rochester because you needed an assistant GM to monitor things down there, and I think Karmanos has done a good job, so that would be unfortunate if he were to go.
Yeah, I can't say I blame him. I don't know what his intentions are, right? Obviously, he's not getting an NHL GM job somewhere because those, as far as I know, I think the Islanders was the last one for a GM. I can't think off the top of my head. So it'll be interesting to see if he does leave. I really hope he doesn't, because that's a good voice, and he's been the boots on the ground guy for Kevyn Adams. Like when they were tailing Detroit heavily around Christmas time, he was the one going to games. So he's been heavily involved. Maybe that'll be not running Rochester, but like the boots on the ground guy. Maybe that'll be Stahl going forward. I don't know. But it does feel like the scouting combine's in like 2 weeks. You would think you want your front office fully formed by that time. So I guess we kind of have a deadline. Again, there's no rules to adding someone to your organization, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But if you're legitimately adding a senior advisor who has power and say on this team, you would imagine he's in place by the scouting combine. So we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because my biggest fear would be if they don't have an advisor by then, really what is this advisor going to do? Is he just a face for us to be like, dude, they calm down, fans, we hired somebody? I don't know.
Guess we'll have to see as the offseason goes on here. We'll get on to our next topic here. Actually, no, we will not, because we still have to go over in the second segment about the draft pick and as well biggest offseason needs for the team. We are going to come back and do a draft preview, closer to the draft and maybe after the combine. Maybe they've hired somebody. But quick thoughts on Rochester, Austin, obviously, in the Final Four right now. What have been your thoughts of what they've been doing?
Yeah, I believe they're currently beating Laval as we are recording. So if that holds, that'll even the series back up. Good, right? I mean, Levi has been a little bit. Laval's a very good team, so I'm not going to sit there and rag on Rochester, but Levi a little bit shaky through the first 3 games of this series. Seems to be playing a lot better tonight. We'll see. We'll see how the game ends. I don't want to jinx anything, knock on wood. But I think if they get past Laval, they have a real shot to make some noise here. To me, from what I don't pay attention to like the Western Conference AHL teams very well because one, that they play late, and two, like it's just a lot of hockey to pay attention to. But I obviously do pay attention to the North Division, the Amherst, Syracuse, Toronto, Laval, etc. And Laval's a really good team. So I think if Rochester can get by here, they have a chance to make some noise. They have good mix of prospects and veterans. Kulich is down there helping out. Levi's hopefully playing a lot better. They have a really good decor. I like the job that Karmanos has done building that team. I like the job Michael Leone and Vinny Prospel, and I think Nathan Page is the other assistant coach. So I like the job that they've done there.
It's got to be a win for them this season, for sure.
Yeah, and I think...
Well, Adam said he wanted to see players playing deep into May and June, so...
Yeah. I think last year Appert took him to the conference final, and Hershey ended up beating him, and Hershey was one of the best teams in the league. I think they won the Calder Cup. So I think if they can get by Laval here, that they're setting themselves up pretty well. AHL playoffs is just wild. Like, I think the Amherst played I don't know. The playoff schedule is wild. There's 5 days off between games sometimes. It is a crazy scheduling process.
It definitely is, but it's good to see Rochester doing well again. We always talk about when is it going to translate to Buffalo, but for them to be in this spot 2 years in a row is definitely a credit to, as you mentioned, 2 different coaching staffs within that and the prospects that the Sabres do have going forward, which we'll get into. What are their biggest offseason needs and what moves do we expect them to make come July 1st and going forward? So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the 9th overall pick really quick, but in the upcoming NHL Draft and offseason needs. So stay right here. We're right back on Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Back after this.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Centre, located at 6100 Thorold Stone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, and Better Jobs Ontario information and registration assistance. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Centre, helping people find work since 1983.
This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario. Pets bring immense joy to our homes, becoming an integral part of our families. But this living, loving experience often requires a little extra care and attention. That's where Global Pet Foods comes in, with owners and staff ready to support you every step of the way. Check out one of their locations today: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, or 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family. Proud to sponsor the Dog Pound Podcast, the official podcast of the Niagara Ice Dogs.
Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicle is in top running condition through the garage's services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers can expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers who can feel confident they'll get trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your vehicles. To find out more or to book a service, contact them today at 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012. Celebrating a birthday, wedding, graduation, or just watching the big game, Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano is there to satisfy your pizza needs. Serving handmade Italian pizzas created with the freshest top quality ingredients, loaded subs, and their famous chicken wings. Platinum Award recipients of Community Votes Niagara for Best Pizza and Wings in all of the Niagara region 3 years running. Open 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week from their brand new location at 7156 Drummond Road in Niagara Falls. All payment options accepted to fit your convenience. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery. Place your order today at 905-374-4400 or check out their online menu for the best quality pizza and wing combos you'll find in Niagara at carmine'spizzeria.ca. You've tried the rest, why not try the best? Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, proudly serving the Niagara community since 2013.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hey, hey, here we go, it's hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go, the boys in blue, white and gold. Hey, hey, here we go, make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all, let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand, raising our hands, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo. We will be here till the end, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's Sabres Semantics season finale episode right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in on the YouTube channel. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell to stay up to date with all of our coverage here on YouTube. And thank you to those listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform. You can give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for all of our short reels and content. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broad are back with you, continuing to go over our topics list for the Sabres. Going to discuss the 9th overall selection in the 2025 NHL Draft. What should Buffalo do with this pick? Use it, trade it for a roster player, try to move up in the draft, move down in the draft, best available at 9, or reach for a specific need. As well, we're going to discuss biggest offseason needs, what the biggest offseason need is for the Sabres come free agency or via trade, to help make them a playoff contending team, and what position possibly they are looking for here going forward. So, Austin, we're going to start off here with the draft pick. Obviously, after the draft results, Buffalo had made it pretty far. They were one of those last 5 teams there that could possibly move up. They end up not being one of the teams chosen. They moved down to the 9th overall selection from where they were slotted in. Were they slotted in at 7 or 8?
Yeah, 7.
7.
They
So
dropped twice.
They moved down twice, with Utah skyrocketing up to the 4th overall pick. And I have my thoughts about the whole draft lottery process and what teams should and should not be picking high, but we can save that for another day. But regardless, the Sabres going to be picking 9th overall in the upcoming NHL Draft. Austin, before we get into the list of players available that they could possibly pick with that selection, one, do you want them to keep it or trade it for a top 6 forward, which is probably one of their biggest needs right now?
Yeah. Real quick, I don't know about you. Lottery aside, I actually enjoyed the production, like the live drawing and stuff. I thought that was relatively cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see how the process actually plays out this time. But
the NHL doesn't get a lot of credit, but I think that was actually I've had a lot of people complaining. I thought it was pretty cool. In terms of trading or keeping the pick, I flip-flop. I flip-flop back and forth because I think 2 things. One, they don't really need to add another top 10 prospect.
Got a lot in the hopper already.
Right? But also, this draft class is relatively weak, according to most scouts that you talk to, once you get past like the top 3, 4. So it's like, all right, I would like them to trade the pick. I don't know what else needs to be added with that number 9 to get the true piece that you need. I don't know how much teams are going to be wanting that number 9 pick if the draft class is quote unquote weaker after the top 3. So it's kind of a really bad situation for the Sabres. But I would lean towards what I want them to do is still trying to find a way to turn it into an asset. What I think they're going to do is I think they're going to stay at 9 and take a prospect because I don't know. Like I said, Kevyn Adams has yet to act like he's worried about losing his job. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just says, hey, I can develop this. This guy will develop in our system here because he probably thinks he's still going to be here long term.
Trade down, trade up.
I mean, it just doesn't happen all that often in the NHL. There's no point in trading down. Because again, like I just said, the draft class gets weaker, so.
You want to pick up an extra second?
Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, worst case scenario, either package it with like. I'm trying to remember what year it was. Whenever Ekman Larson went from Arizona to Vancouver, I think it was like Ekman Larson to Vancouver for like. No, it was Ekman Larson and Garland. So that was like it can be done. Like you can get effective pieces, but it just doesn't feel like you're gonna get teams clamoring to trade for a pick where the general opinion of this class is not good. Like it's a weaker draft class if you talk to people smarter than me, and you know me, like I'm pretty involved in the scouting community, and a lot of people I talk to just said it's not worth it. So we'll see. I think if the right trade comes, like I said, if the right trade comes for any piece, whether it's 9th overall or anything else in the Sabres roster, the dude better listen. But I wouldn't be I would be shocked if they're not picking at 9th.
So you'd be shocked if some team came calling for the 9th pick for a top 6 forward.
Depending on the forward, it depends on your definition of a top 6 forward, right? Like,
right.
Could I see like
a guy with term that a team wants to get rid of?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, if you remember the trade that
Corey Schneider for Bo Horvat that got
I was trying to think of that one. I was trying to think like the last time the Sabres were involved with the top 10 pick being traded, it was like Matt Murray nixed it. Matt Murray was going to come to the Sabres with like the Sens 7th overall pick for the Sabres like 10th overall pick. So like it's even that like how big of a trade is that actually? It's not like they just don't seem to be that big of a deal. But like if a team like you're not getting like a Jason Robertson for the 9th overall pick, you know what I mean? Like you're not getting like that true blue impact top 6 forward, but could you get a 28-year-old version of Jason Zucker for 9th? Probably, but I don't know if that's worth it. Also, I don't even when we get into that later in the episode, I also don't think top 6 forward is necessarily the top of my list for what I'd be going after, but again, if any trade comes their way, Adams has to be on the phone and be thinking about it.
So our second poll there, what should the Sabres do with their first-round pick? According to the Twitter poll, 75% would be trade for a roster player, and then tied with select a forward and trade up into the top 5. Trade down and pick up more was 0%. So I guess the fans are with you that trade for a roster player if that deal is available. Just good luck finding somebody that would want to do that, like you said, given that this draft class may not be looked at as impactful. There are still some solid players. A lot of OHL players this year. Austin has been incredible. We could have 3 of the top 5 players taken from the OHL, which is great for us, covering the league. But it's from the general consensus, what would be available there, what teams are willing to get rid of. You look at teams like Nashville that would probably love to get rid of like a contract like Jonathan Marchessault because he hasn't worked out there. I think him to the Leafs makes a lot of sense, given if they're going to lose Marner for $14 million. So, maybe if those teams, if there's a team that's looking to go after a Marner or one of these other top free agents, maybe they're trying to unload a guy that makes a little bit of money, maybe in his late 20s. Would the Sabres even want that, knowing that they have some big contracts that they're going to have to be giving out to Peterkas, and Tuck's going to need a contract if he's back in a year. So, it just seems more likely, as you said, that Kevyn Adams is probably just going to stay at 9 and pick somebody.
Yeah, the name that kind of jumped off the page to me is he's got trade protection, but Pittsburgh has Rickard Rakell, he's got trade protection. They have Brian Rust, who I actually think would be a great ad. He loses his trade protection, but it's also I don't know, am trade in the 9th overall pick for Brian Rust? I'd probably be okay with it, but I know that's not exactly the player that people would want for the 9th overall pick. But I also think we have to realize the 9th overall pick doesn't hold the value that it does in an NFL draft.
And also because the Sabres have so many prospects, we saw them move Matt Savoy, who was a first-round pick for a third-line center, in Ryan McLeod, which has actually worked out well with how well McLeod played this year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, it's just, if the right deal is there, you got to move it. But if you're, like you said, we'll see. I am firmly in the camp of I want them to trade it, but I am firmly in the camp of, while wanting that, I also don't expect them to.
Right.
I'm not gonna do what I did last year, expecting this big move, and then on day 2 of the draft, the move that he makes is Beck Malenstein.
We'll look at this here with the mock draft here, and again, I've got it up on the screen. Friend of the show, Stephen Ellis from dailyfaceoff.com, just going to quickly go over who he has on the list and get Austin's thoughts on who he would like at number 9. We're going to go from 7 to 12 there with the area because, like Austin mentioned, after the top 3, 4, 5, it could pretty much be a crapshoot depending on who's available. Brady Martin from the Sioux Greyhounds, Jackson Smith from the Tri-City Americans, Victor Eklund is who Steven has the Sabres taking there with the pick there with the 9th overall pick, right winger. 10th, Jake O'Brien from the Brantford Bulldogs, a center. 11th, Keishon Aitchison, defenseman from the Barrie Colts. And Radim Murka from the Seattle Thunderbirds, the right-handed defenseman. And Carter Bear, center left wing from the Everett Silvertips. Austin, what are your thoughts on those, just maybe that group of players? You assume that like a Caleb Desnoyers, with being in the Memorial Cup, he's going to skyrocket up a little bit, possibly into the top 5. But who do you like in that area that the Sabres are picking?
Yeah, so Desnoyers is my draft crush. Unfortunately, I think he's playing his way out of the Sabres range, especially because they dropped down 2 spots, but I really, really like him. I think, if they go with Eklund or O'Brien or Martin, there's no wrong choice there. I think the thing that makes the most sense, if he's there, is Radim Murka from Seattle, 6'6", 215-pound defenseman, right shot. One thing that they desperately need is a potential top 4 right shot defenseman. Sabres fans, sorry, not all Sabres fans, but the ones who don't necessarily like Owen Power probably aren't going to be super fond of Murka either, because he is not the bruiser, big body defenseman. He's a lot closer to a puck mover. But I really, really, really do like Murka a lot. I think he fills your biggest need while also not being a total reach at 9th. But if they come away with an O'Brien or a Brady Martin or, an Eklund, I think those are all fine choices. I could see them, if he's there, falling in love with Roger McQueen from the Brandon Wheat Kings, because he's just so big and is so toolsy as a forward. But to me, I think there's, like you said, there's some decent options. Unfortunately, none of these options are going to pull Zach Benson and make the team right away. So that's why we're talking for people who want the pick to be traded. I feel you, because the player's not going to probably make an impact for this coaching staff. But I think Radim Murka would probably be best case scenario just in terms of filling a need, and he's a really, really good prospect.
So you'd obviously lean more towards D than forward.
Depending on the forward, like I really do like Brady Martin a lot. He seems to be on the rise publicly. I don't know how NHL scouts are feeling about him. I know, again, Bob McKenzie kind of still seems to be the litmus test for scouts or scouting rankings, because he does talk to these NHL scouts in terms of what NHL teams are thinking, not in terms of who's actually the best players. But Martin or O'Brien feel really, really solid. But I think if you can marry a need with a player in that range, that is best case scenario. And the Sabres desperately need a right shot defenseman who projects to be a top 4 in the NHL, because they have some decent right shot prospects. None of them project to be a top 4.
And they've got too many left-handed shot D right now that, like, with the Powers and the Byrams and the Dahleens, like, it's pretty much set in stone. Yeah, the power. We've got more on the Byram thing a little bit after, but
yes, they definitely have, the Dahleen, the Samuelson, the Power. Bernard Docker looks good as a right shot defenseman, but also,
does he project to be top 4?
Probably not. But like I said, that's where I kind of land with Murtka. But I think if they end up with any of the forwards, it's relatively solid.
And if they could possibly somehow Desnoyers, I don't think he's going to fall to 9. He would obviously be a great pick, or like a James Haggins or Frindell. I don't think any of those guys have an opportunity to fall to the Sabres at 9.
I wonder, again, when we talk about the draft, this will be more interesting, but I wonder about Martone. I don't know if he falls to 9, but I think he falls. But again, that's more for the draft preview.
Yeah, and he's obviously a power forward that leaves you a lot to be desired as far as what he could possibly potentially be. Was on Team Canada, or was asked to be on Team Canada's a World Championship team. Obviously, it didn't end well for Canada the other day. Pretty disastrous losing to Denmark. But the fact that he was asked to be there as a draft-eligible player, people are really high on Porter Martone from the Brampton Steelheads. But obviously, we'll get into all that when we come on and do a quick draft preview, especially on the OHL guys, because we see them a lot more often, at least I do, than most of the other prospects, especially the ones overseas. So with that, we'll get into our last topic of the day, which is the biggest offseason need for the Sabres. What should be the Sabres' biggest offseason targets in the upcoming offseason via free agency, trade, or to help them become a playoff contending team? Let's get to the Twitter poll first. And that would be top 6 forward, top 4 defenseman, veteran goaltender, or depth forward or defense. Top 4 defenseman won this poll, 62.5%. Second was top 6 forward, and third was depth forward or defense. I was actually kind of shocked, given the veteran goaltender, because I still think that if Levi's going to spend another year in Rochester, they're going to need somebody to help UPL out. Reimer did a great job. Whether he comes back or not, we'll have to wait and see. Austin, what is your thoughts on the biggest offseason need? And again, this is all pending with the Boehm Byram situation that has come up in the last week or so.
Yeah, and I think this will be more for our offseason preview show, but I do want to kind of we should do a nice little dive into that goaltender situation, because I'm not 100% sure. Like you said, I don't think veteran goalie is high on the Sabres list of needs either, because part of me has a sneaking suspicion that they're going to let Levi not only challenge for the backup, but part of me is not fully out on them letting Levi challenge for the starting job next year, but that is for a later date. Top 4 defensemen by far. I think you could argue 2 defensemen, maybe not 2 top 4, but 2 really solid defensemen. So whether it's a top 4 and like a third pairing guy, but defense should be their biggest needs. They should spend a lot of their time revamping that D-core. That doesn't necessarily mean they can't add to the forwards. I still think they should add a veteran tweener, right? Like middle 6, I'll say. They should definitely look to add a middle 6 forward to help out with everything there. But if they come away with most of their offseason moves targeting that top 4 defense and their solid moves, I think that's a win. Again, you have to expect regression, but offense wasn't the problem last year. It was goaltending / keeping the puck out of your net, which defense has a big part of that. So wouldn't be surprised if that's where a majority of their efforts are put, especially with the rumored Boehm Byram news that the Sabres are testing the market to see what they can get for him. So if you lose Boehm Byram, you do need 2 top 4 defensemen. So to me, that's where I kind of lean. But I still hope they add some forward depth as well, quality forward depth, not just like a Beck Mallenstein guy, like a real piece that can play second or third line, but defense should be 80% of their focus, in my opinion.
Putting another layer on that, friend of the show, Joe Yurden, obviously does a great job covering the Sabres on a daily basis. He tweeted out earlier today on the report of Sabres RFA Bo Byram requesting a trade. I reached out to his agent, Darren Ferris, who said Bo has made no such request and calls it a total fabrication. So,
do you want me to explain why he had to do that?
Sure.
Apparently, Paul Hamilton said on WGR Bo requested a trade, which is not what was reported by Friedman at all. Friedman said that the Sabres are gauging the market for him, and somehow that led to Paul Hamilton saying that Bo requested a trade. So that's kind of where that came from. Because I think the Friedman report was Bo would welcome a bigger role, which, okay.
But that doesn't mean he went into the office and said he wants to be traded.
Yeah, exactly. I do think the Sabres should move on from him. Again, strike while the iron's hot. I still think a team might overpay for a puck mover like Byram with Stanley Cup champion. And also kind of fitting where, yeah, unfortunately for Bo, he's not going to get that big role. Dahlin's the number one guy and Power's the number two. Byram has really been effective with Dahlin.
Offhand.
Yep, but do you want to pay that guy who's only effective with Dahlin what Bo is going to make? Like, that Jacob Chychrun deal really muddies the waters for Bo and Byram because he has better numbers than Jacob Chychrun. I don't want to pay Bo and Byram $9 million.
You don't want to pay three defensemen over $20 million.
I don't care if it's three defensemen, but I don't want to pay that defenseman $9 million.
If he's not even the number one or number two.
Exactly. So that's where it's kind of like I expect Byram to be moved. But yeah, if Byram's gone, you need two top four defensemen. So that's kind of where like my opinion is their biggest need by far is defense, but they can't neglect the forwards either.
Going into the free agent class here, and
it's not exactly the best. There's some decent forwards out there, but nothing that I think Buffalo will.
There we go. So, again, I think people wanting Mitch Marner, that's, you might as well keep dreaming for that. I don't think the Sabres are going to be paying him $14 million a year in the open market, and definitely the bidding war that's going to come for a guy like Mitch Marner. It would be fun to see him, have revenge against the Leafs just down the QEW there, but I think that's just not something the Sabres are in a position to do right now, nor do I think Mitch Marner would want to come to Buffalo, given that they're really not in a position to win right now. And he could probably get more money elsewhere. I don't think Kevyn Adams is in a position to give him what he's looking for in the open market. And we've seen top-end free agents just not even really look at Buffalo as a destination. And, Kevyn Adams talking about palm trees this last January. But going down the list here, just available UFAs, obviously John Tavares is probably going to re-sign with Toronto on a shorter deal. Matt Duchene, 34 years old. Mikael Granlund, 33 years old. Nick Ehlers, Ryan Donato, Patrick Kane, probably going back to Detroit. Brock Nelson, will he return to Colorado? I don't know. Sam Bennett's another big name free agent, going to get paid. When you go down the list here, Brock Besser, Brad Marchand, Jamie Benn, like Claude Giroux, Kyle Palmieri, he's going to be 35 years old. Like, realistically, as I'm scrolling through the free agent list here, Austin, what are you kind of looking at as somebody that you might be interested in and who would actually want to come to Buffalo right now?
So forward-wise, and he kind of fits the middle six forward, I like Mason Appleton as a target. Solid defensive
from Winnipeg,
two-way guy. Yeah, I think he could be a nice third-line guy who could play up in the lineup when needed to. UFA forwards is tough because I don't think the impact that the Sabres will want is kind of worth the squeeze unless maybe a Jack Roslovic again. But I feel like he's the type of guy who will stay in Carolina because usually those types of guys Carolina is good at retaining. Defense, pipe dream. I don't know how good he is anymore, but like there's the Eric Stahl connection to Aaron Ekblad. I think, again, very doubtful, but someone to monitor. He's a name.
If they move Byram, they would make some cap space to be able to sign a guy like Aaron Ekblad. But
yeah, some underrated defensive guys that I kind of like. Again, I don't know if he gets to UFA from Columbus, but like Dante Fabro might not be all that expensive. A guy like Nick Perbix from Tampa Bay might not be all that expensive. I do think, if you want that true top four defenseman, you're going to have to probably do it via trade. And that's where you look at a Zach Whitecloud from Las Vegas, or a Michael Kesselring from Utah, or he's a lefty, so it's kind of whatever. But like a guy like Jonas Brodin loses trade protection come July. He's someone you could target. You do have a JJ Peterka, Bowen Byram type of trade chip that maybe Minnesota would be interested in.
I saw people floating around Rossi, but like what with Brodin, like I saw that today, and I just kind of shook my head at that.
That's probably not happening. But just like the name Brodin is a fun one that he's got a history with Dolly, and both playing on the Swedish team.
Can we get Brock Faber?
I don't want him.
He's one of those guys that's very polarizing. Either you love him or you hate him. Like
I think he's a little bit overrated, and definitely not the type of defenseman that Buffalo needs.
Point of order. It seems like these trades are harder to make for these roster players these days. Like I don't know if it's because the 32 teams now and because the cap hasn't gone up in a while. It just seems like the top impact players aren't moving around. We're not seeing Mikko Rantanen type trades every single season with pending UFAs. Like I think it's harder to kind of make trades in today's NHL with guys that have term, unless they're just guys that teams want to give away for free because he's 35 years old with 4 years left on his contract making $8 million.
Yeah, but the cap's about to start going up.
Yeah. Hopefully
right?
It goes in a different direction. Just recently it hasn't really materialized.
Yeah, there's been a decent amount this year, but I definitely get you there. Like I said, it's
middle stat for Byram was one of them.
That's where again, unfortunately, not to give Adams credit because I'm not a fan of him, but he is one of the few GMs that does make these roster player trades, right?
Josh Norris,
Josh Norris, Bowen Byram. He got Greenway for draft picks. Like he has acquired players with term. McLeod, like the credit he deserves is like he has been relatively solid at that.
So last question for you would be, it would be like if Thompson's going to be more of a winger going forward, you move Norris up to the top line wing or top line center, then you look for a number 2 center or Ryan McLeod. He's more known as a number 3, but he played really well this year. So I think it depends on if they want Thompson to be still on the wing or they want to move him back to center, because then if he moves to wing, you've got Norris down the middle, you probably want to get another center.
I'm not saying this is a good idea, because, again, this is not what a real serious team would do, but they did really seem to like Kulich, Benson, and Thompson.
Right.
Now, you should not be penciling Yuri Kulich in as your number 1 center going into next year. Nothing against the player at all. I like Yuri Kulich a lot.
He had a great breakout year.
Yeah, but you should not be doing that. So I'm interested to see what they do. Ruff does appear to like Thompson at wing.
Right. He has the ability to go in when needed, but
I don't really care where he is. I prefer him at center just because Thompson, Norris, McLeod, top 3 sounds pretty good. But here's the thing: maybe they trade. I mean, again, for a center, right? Like a name that I've seen thrown around by a couple Sabres people that I really actually am starting to not come around on, but like I didn't think was realistic, but now maybe might be like a Barrett Hayden from Utah.
Mm-hmm.
He's given a little bit of McLeod vibes in terms of could thrive in a different environment. And then all of a sudden, if you have a Norris, Hayden, McLeod as your top 3, no true number 1 there, but some really quality depth there with the Thompson question looming. I don't know. So there are names out there. There are moves out there to be had. We just got to hope this GM can not only identify them, but he can execute them, because the moves he has made, and, depending on your opinion of the Norris trade, which obviously determines purely on health, but I think Norris is a good player. He's made good trades. He's identified good players and acquired them. He just hasn't done it enough. So I really, like we were talking about free agents, I'm not going to sit here and I would love Mitch Marner to come to Buffalo, obviously. 2% chance?
If Thompson's your top line right wing and Tuck's your second, you don't even really need to talk about that scenario.
Again, I don't know what they're going to do. Also, he's probably not gone because I think they're going to try and bridge him and keep him here. That Peterka smoke at the trade deadline was pretty hard to ignore. But
what kind of contract's he asking for, right?
That's the problem. That's why I think you bridge him. He's the perfect bridge candidate. I know people don't necessarily love that, but I just can't imagine this GM. That's kind of what we talked about last episode is he has to also improve the team. But he also has McLeod, Peterka, without any trades. McLeod, Peterka, Quinn, Byram, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Devin Levi.
I could eat up a lot of your free cap.
All his RFAs.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you trade Byram, you still have 5 RFAs you have to sign. Like, Adams is going to have to be busy. All the more reason to get him a senior advisor. But I guess, like I said,
Jack Quinn's not getting the long-term deal he thought he was going to after maybe last year.
Jack Quinn's lucky if they offer him a deal that's more than a qualifying offer. Saying that, he also did put up career high in points, which is insane how bad he was. He still put up 39 points.
Because he played more of a full season than he did the year before.
Yeah. So like I said, it'll be really interesting.
Yep.
We're at a point where we have to have faith in Kevyn Adams. It's not the greatest feeling in the world, but we have no choice. But for the third straight year, we're saying this is a huge pivotal offseason. But maybe finally he's going to act like a GM who has no job security, and he's going to go out there and go nuts. That's all I can hope for. And I'm not hopeful, but it's all I have left at this point.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how that goes. Again, we'll come back and, if there's any breaking news, which I doubt is going to happen between now and the draft, maybe they hire a senior advisor, who knows. You'd hope that would be in place, like you said, by the Combine in a few weeks, which does take place in Buffalo every year. So maybe some activity and some conversations start to be had at the Combine, which leads to more activity near the draft. We'll come back and do a better solid draft preview for you guys. Even though it is our offseason, we'll come back on because it is an important time for the Sabres there. Give you guys a few quick episodes for the draft, and then obviously with free agency looming on July 1st, that'll be definitely a big topic as we try to grow the content here on the network. But thanks to everybody that tuned in this season. It definitely wasn't the easiest for us to come on and talk about, and I'm sure it wasn't the easiest for the fans to listen to at times this season, Austin. But, another season of Sabres Semantics in the books. And definitely big things as we continue moving forward here with our best viewership and highest ratings that we've ever had 5 years doing the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more thing before we go. I think it'll only be for this year, but with the draft being decentralized, I think the Combine is like the only place we'll see all the GMs all in the same building.
Yeah.
I wonder if that sparks anything.
Good point.
I know it's not normal to see trades while hockey is still going on, but if we're not going to have all the GMs in the same building for the draft this year like we normally do. So I wonder, or at least there'll be some. I expect there to be some rumors coming out of the Combine this year, at least where I don't think we normally would. So that's the last thing I wanted to say. Like you said, it was a hard year. Every year has been hard. Obviously, the last couple of years, we had that high where we were 1 point short, and then it's kind of the last 2 years has just been downhill since. But hopefully here, next year is the year. All we can hope for. But like I said, I ended it, this guy Adams is going to have to be busy. So I at least expect our offseason our draft preview and free agency recap. I expect that to at least be fun, because at the very least, whether it's keeping everybody or making some moves, he's got a lot of people to sign.
Yeah, we'll see what sparks in tires being kicked at the Combine, and as you said, decentralized NHL Draft this year. So maybe some more conversations than they would have in previous years. So that's going to do it for our Sabres Semantics season finale episode right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody that tuned in live or tuned in on video on our YouTube channel, and those listening the next day in your favorite on-demand audio platform. Sure, by the time this comes out, the Sabres make a hire, and then the half of the show is ruined. But regardless of that, thank you to everybody that tuned into this. For Austin Broad, my name is Brandon Caputo. That's it, and we'll talk to you guys again very soon here in the upcoming offseason for the NHL Draft. We'll talk to you then. You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.